We don't just care about your physical health. We care about your mental health and what you being at a good place in your mental health can do for yourself, your performance, your team, because exhaustive leadership is bad leadership. So how do you avoid having exhausted leaders? You've got to pour into them from a mental health and wellness perspective.
Welcome to the Optimized Workplace. Today, I welcome Millette Granville, Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for 2U, a global online learning platform connecting millions of people to high-quality, career-relevant education in partnership with leading universities and industry experts. Milette has over 15 years of DEI experience and leadership. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here too, because in our work here at Aerobodies, we in the Optimized Workplace, we work a lot around workplace experience and engagement and really making sure that employees are well taken care of so they can thrive in the workplace. And you know, as well as the rest of the world, that, you know, we've been through a lot to impact the workplace over the last couple of years. You know, we're 2 years now, post-COVID, post George Floyd, you know, post DEI becoming the helm of every conversation. And now we're seeing the fanning of that flame a little bit. So just to kind of level set in terms of where we are from your perspective, someone who is an expert who's been working in DEI for so long, you know, where would you say we really are when it comes to the mission of DEI and the whole return to work movement that we have learned? And what do we still need to learn as we come out all these changes?
Well, I think we're also at a little bit of a crossroads around DEI and belonging, because, you know, when George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many other Black and brown faces were victims and killed by the hands of the police, you saw this rush for companies to have individuals come into their organizations to help them navigate actually talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in a different way. Now you see a lot of things happening in the political world that we live in, putting, you know, DEI kind of a little bit under attack, if you will. But I think the things that are really standing out for why companies need to remain diligent in their DEIB work is because we're getting ready to introduce, and several of Gen Zers are already in the workplace, but we're getting ready to bring in the most diverse generation to ever hit the workforce ever. And when you talk about the level of diversity that you see in Generation Z, they aren't going to be seeking companies that think they want to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. They're going to be seeking companies that are doing it and doing it in a visual and vocal and visible way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there may be, you know, buzz happening with the whole politics things, but the truth of the matter is, if companies want to attract, if they want to retain, and if they want to engage and develop their workforce, they are going to have to be diligent about their processes, making sure equity is in their processes, making sure they understand the importance of diverse lens when it comes to talent management, when it comes to calibration of talent and how you develop and engage your workforce. These are things that people are going to be expecting to already be in place and continuously worked on. It's no longer going to be a nice to have. You know, back in the day, that's what it was. The companies that were leading, it was, you know, nice to have. No, there's so much research out there that speaks to your ability for any company, no matter what your business is, to make sure you have that innovation, creativity, difference, and diversity of thought. And the only way that you're going to get that is by making sure the talent in your organization reflects the customer base you are trying to go after.
Wow. Boy, that was powerful. So putting on the employee hat for a moment, do you feel as if, you know, we have so many benchmarks and so many, you know, calling cards for supposedly great places to work? Every other company puts one out, right? So there's a best place to work, there's a pay scale, there's an, you know, Indeed for this and Indeed for that. But from the employee perspective, do you think that there is a real a metric that they can look for, that they can go to besides a Glassdoor, for instance, where they can really see, again, as you just said, under the covers, behind the walls, as to, does this company really represent at heart what's my personal mission, what's in line with my personal vision in terms of who I am as a diverse person?
Well, I think what you find that people are doing today to get a better insight of what the company culture is and kind of what things they are looking for to make sure that the companies are meeting that need. You see a lot of smart folks out there who are top candidates, if you will. They know their top talent. They're doing a little bit more digging. They're actually looking at companies' ESG reports.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at transparency reports. They're not just looking at the DEI reporting that's coming out and the ESG reporting and things like that, where you can really see where a company is putting their resources when it comes to communities, when it comes to diversity supplier, when it comes to their board diversity, all of that. You can actually learn more about by going to some of those public reports and things like that to see if a company is putting their money where their mouth is. The other thing that I think a lot of people are doing these days is they're using platforms like a LinkedIn, if you will. And here's the great thing about what LinkedIn is doing. If you apply for a position and you want to see who is in that company that is connected to you or connected to somebody you know, well, now that automatically comes up. So all you have to do is click on who you have in common that is connected to that particular company and send a quick note to say, hey, I see you have a position open at such and such, and we're connected to this person. I'd love to hear what you think about the culture. I'd love to hear what you think about, growth opportunities in your organization.
Yeah.
So now, smart job seekers are no longer relying on things like Glassdoor and all of that, because usually people who are posting in those sites are either leaving, have left, or perhaps maybe disgruntled. You're not going to get the full picture that way. So a lot of times people are now using those easy connect points to get in touch with someone who actually is still working with that organization and saying, tell me what you think. Give me the real skinny. And because that platform is a trusted platform, people are easily able to respond and say, hey, yeah, I've been here for 5 years and this is what I've seen. And so I think getting creative about talking to people that are actually in the organization and looking at websites, especially if companies are putting those video vignettes up now, you see that's a little bit more common, where you're actually able to hear from employees in their own words, in their own voices, talk to you about what it means to work for XYZ company. So I think people are getting smarter about their research.
That is so insightful. And for those who listen to the Optimized Workplace on your favorite station, if you're an employer, you're a CEO, you run your own business, or you're a director in an organization, I think that's really powerful what you've just given, because you've given that framework for who's going to respond to your ad, who's going to respond to your listing. We just put up a listing actually a couple of days ago, and we were very pleased to see it, but it was also very eye-opening to me that people coming from some really well-known organizations are so interested in working with a small boutique firm that represents diversity. We have a very diverse, very women-led organization, but it really, to me, was a big aha as to what's really happening in the workplace. So let's kind of switch that gear a little bit if we can. You're now with a global icon when it comes to learning and learning platforms to you. Putting on the lens of an employer, someone who is managing employees and using this lens of DEI and what you need to do to be training your workforce. And a big term right now is upskilling. How are you finding your organization and others are really doing that through learning and development and online platforms?
I can tell you what we're doing is a combination, which is what I think a lot of organizations are quite frankly doing. But because we are unique in the sense that we also own edX, which is a complete platform of any type of learning you can imagine. They also have free to degree. So a lot of people that are interested in getting certifications, they're interested in upskilling, participating in boot camps, and all of that. We are encouraging that, and we also give access and free memberships and access to courses to our employees so they can explore through edX or even through some of the programs that we have to be able to upskill their skills that they want to learn that are new skills. And some of our employees also participate in some of our boot camps, which you'll find are pretty popular things for people to get into, say, cybersecurity, who are not tech people. But they can get in through and go through a full boot camp and become fully certified to do that work. We also invest in learning and development offerings internally as well. To make sure that our employees have an opportunity for continuous learning. We partner with other universities and things like that to offer exec ed and leadership development opportunities outside of our organization, as well as giving discounts and access to learning opportunities that are coming through, whether that's through one of our university partners or whether that's access to the platform edX. Which really you can look up any topic or subject within edX and find free courses that you sometimes would have to pay for as well. But the point of that is that it's a variety. Because the real magic in retaining talent, I think today, and it's going to be true in the next 5 to 10 years, is upskilling. And not being afraid to make sure that your employees understand how AI can help to facilitate some of that learning. We're at a company that actually fully embraced what you can do with AI and how AI can help us do our work more efficiently and effectively. And I think one of the things that is pretty amazing is that people coming into the workforce, you talked about COVID and how that's changed what people may be looking for. People are looking for work that actually matters to them. So I wasn't surprised when they were interested in your company, because you are finding that people are really looking for a company they can connect to from the mission. Like our mission is hashtag no back row. So I'm very committed to what education can do for someone and how important it is to have the tools to upskill and to gain new skill sets in order for you to stay competitive. And I think companies are doing a combination of things in order to meet that need.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think we're a small company, right? We're less than 100 employees, but I have totally embraced AI. It's a little intimidating. I'm not going to lie.
It
I have a
can
very
be.
young team and they love it. And I can already see how it can benefit our clients. So we need to be on the cutting edge of that. We need to be learning. We need to be involved with that. We need to be doing all of that. If you are enjoying this segment or any of the segments that you've heard thus far on the Optimized Workplace, please be sure to join us here below and just follow us on the Optimized Workplace. We really want to not only drive our viewers and listeners, but we also want to share it. So if there's others that you know, like us, please here, join and listen, subscribe on a regular basis, but also share the podcast. We'd love to have you back. So I want to shift gears a little bit now and talk about something that's kind of close, near and dear to me. And I know you see it a lot, being an HR maven that you are and being in your field for so long. And that's the issue around mental health that is affecting the workplace today. And I'm so curious from your lens, what conversations do we need to have from a C-suite level in organizations, and what needs to happen so that the mental health, cross-section with DEI, and that's where it's really showing up, right? Really heavily with women, Black and brown, people of color. It is no longer, again, a nice to have, but we're really starting to move the needle. What needs to happen, do you feel, inside these organizations for that to begin to happen with mental health?
One, I think for the C-suite, they have to come to terms with the fact that they're going to have to offer better, more comprehensive, more easily accessible mental health and wellness benefits. And the reason I say C-suite is because they have to also wrap their heads around the financial component to that. Because if you look at, for example, I talked a little bit about Gen Z, 80% of Gen Zers are looking for a company that is both committed to their physical and mental health well-being. Why?
80%.
80%. Because over 45% of them have said their mental health is not where it needs to be. And the reason for that is all of the collective trauma. Think about what Gen Zers have had to go through. They've had to go through COVID. They didn't have the access for a lot of us, go to college, live on campus, get all of that experience. They didn't have that. And then you go to all of the things when we talked about George Floyd, all of the social justice activism. Guess what? Gen Z were out there leading those initiatives. So when you have that kind of collective trauma and school shootings and active shooter drills and all of that, it compiles. And so when you take what people have had to deal with from COVID, mental health is now one of the number one reasons or number one things that businesses have to get serious about. And that means they've got to have different kinds of benefits available to their employees. They've got to have therapy options in a way that's easy for their employees to take advantage of. They've got to implement apps like Wellness Coach and things like that, where employees can pick and choose beyond just EAP what they need to be able to help them stay in a good state of mental health, if you will. And I'll give you an example. We're actually planning a session coming up on mindfulness and dealing with constant change and how you have to be intentional about your health and wellness and and being able to use mindfulness to gauge and navigate through all the changes that's happening even with our organization. And then you've got to layer in, and this is important for the C-suite too, as well as other leaders, you've got to layer in the globalization of the issues that are coming into the workplace. I know many practitioners out there that are dealing with challenges inside the workplace, talking about Gaza, talking about Israel, talking about Palestinian rights and what's happening with that. You can't just brush that off anymore. So that means you've got to, we had to do a session on courageous conversations in a highly politicized climate. And the reason I had to partner with my learning team to do that session was because several people leaders were saying, how do we deal with this level of conversation in the workplace without, making someone mad or making someone uncomfortable? How do I, as a leader, help my team, navigate this? You've got to be able to have the learning and development for leaders to do that. And now when you look at your benefits, you can't just look at the regular benefits that you traditionally offer. You've got to have the kind of benefits that are going to attract people who said mental health and wellness is a priority. And now you see companies implementing mental health days, wellness check days. They are building that into the culture of their organization so that people know we don't just care about your physical health, we care about your mental health and what you being at a good place in your mental health can do for yourself, your performance, your team. Because I was saying to a group that I was doing a session on self-preservation versus perseverance, and how important it is to recognize that exhaustive leadership is bad leadership. So how do you avoid having exhausted leaders? You've got to pour into them from a mental health and wellness perspective.
I am so glad you have shared this. I am so glad it's coming from someone else besides me, folks, because they know on the Optimized Workplace, I talk about this, Milette, all the time. It's not a one and done. And it's not a checkbox. I mean, your life is not a checkbox. Why in the world do you think
not?
that a benefit would be a checkbox. What you need, before you have children, before you're married, before COVID is completely different if any of those factors have changed, for instance, and let alone being a caregiver, dealing with the stress, dealing with the war, just dealing with so many other things. So I love the fact that you unpack that and that you did it in such a poignant way, because people really, and leaders need to get this. It's not up to the employees, it's up to the leaders to really make a difference. Invest in your team. Your teams are the most important people in your organization. It is so important to invest in them, see them as a real value. And I'm coining a phrase from another speaker, employee sustainability, being willing to sustain that workforce, because it's going to cost you so much money anyway.
Absolutely.
Take the time to do that. I think training and development program platforms like 2U, but even other things. You mentioned wellness coach. We do a program called Well Team Culture. There are so many different ways that people need to be supported. And as you were speaking, it made me think about, when I started my company back in the 90s, I started it completely in corporate fitness and wellness, right? That's all we did. We just programmed soup to nuts. I tell people, you want a fitness and wellness program, you can program things soup to nuts. But I always told clients, they're like, well, can we bring in a Weight Watchers, or can we bring in back then it was Spa Lady. I'm dating myself. It was like Spa Lady, right? Things like that. I said, it's not one thing, folks. It's $1 billion industry for a reason, because there are 1 billion different ways and 1 billion different problems that people have in dealing with their health and well-being. And now with mental health, I think you said it beautifully, Milette. Thank you so much for that. Beautifully, that we need to look at addressing this issue from a macro level, because it is a macro issue. And I just so love that. So I could talk to you all day, as you can tell. You have to come back. I could talk to you all day. But as we wind down this conversation, I'm asking my guests in 2024, because it is important. Yeah, you got to take care of everybody else, but you got to put that oxygen mask on yourself first. What are you doing as a leader, speaker, and I know a guide for thousands of people in your organization? What are you doing to maintain and take care of your own well-being and resilience in 2024?
Such a great question. So I am doing a few things. I am now fully immersed in my practice of mindfulness, because it has really allowed me to manage my stress level, my perspective. I also say therapy. Having a good therapist is really important and has really helped me think about the way I approach my work, the way I approach my personal life. And now I have a real, I hate to say work-life balance, I have work-life prioritization, where I prioritize my own mental health and the things that I like to do, which include traveling. And I this is old school, but I enjoy a spa day, and I make sure that I have them as often as I can, because what it does is it allows me to gift myself with the kind of self-care that gives my mind and my brain and everything a chance to just be still. And the power of being still, I had to learn. And it can really, really change how you approach your life. Spirituality, I'm a Christian person, and my connection to the Lord and my spirituality is another big piece of how I am practicing my self-care. I prioritize my engagement with my family and friends, when before that was not the case. Now it's a priority. And so those things are the things that are near and dear to me. I am also working on my own health journey, eating right, getting more exercise and movement, and doing it in a realistic way. Because before I'd be like, no, I'm going to lose 30 pounds and da, 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 and I got to get in this dress. But no, now it's not about me actually taking full responsibility for my own self-care and my ability to have longevity on as much as we can, because some of that is not in our control. But yes, I want to be able to show up as my fully best present self
Mhm.
and taking time out. I am an extrovert, but guess what? I'm one of those unique extroverts that actually recharge by myself, like
Mhm.
having time for myself. That's how I refill my cup. And so I have done a lot of things that allow me to practice my meditation, my mindfulness, take time off work, and spend time with my family and friends, and do all of those things intentionally, so that I can see as much of this world, as much of this life as I can. And I can be the best version of myself for all of those that I am privileged to interact with in any capacity, whether that's work, home, community, etc. It's a priority for me now.
I
So
hear
I,
you.
I have to say that it is no longer option B.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You are definitely coming back to the show. I think it's
Would love
fabulous because you are a corporate leader, and yet as a lead, you realize it's not a one and done. I think the
Right.
beautiful thing that you expressed and you shared is that there are multiple ways that I need to self-care, and I'm acknowledging and doing all in a balanced, practical way to stay beautiful and resilient. If you can't see her and you're listening to the podcast, she's a beautiful lady, but she's also, I can tell that you not only recognize your responsibility to take care of others, but you really value and recognize the responsibility to take care of yourself. And I have to be honest with you, 30 years in this business, running a company, but being in health and wellness, I love to work with and get to know and interchange with people who get that piece, because it
Yes.
doesn't matter what you want to do for everybody else. If you're not taking care of yourself, what's inside is eventually going to come out, and it's not usually very pretty. This is a great place
Absolutely.
to put a pin. This has been such a rewarding conversation. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. It has been for me too. And thank you for what you're doing, because it's so important. And like you said, it's not one and done.
Not at all. And thank you all for joining us for the Optimized Workplace today. Again, I'm your host, Frandine Bishop. Remember to subscribe and listen. We have powerful conversations, and we have conversations that matter most to you and your team. And remember, as I always tell you, it's many and that small, monumental moments in your life that make the biggest difference. Take care, everyone.